When the stage lights went out, nobody could believe it. The woman who mesmerized the world with those crazy eyes was now walking silently through the corridors of Denville Hall. As Alzheimer's disease slowly destroyed her, nobody knew that those old films were still playing over and over in Kathleen Byron's mind. Have you ever wondered? How do the final days of those actors who gave such magnificent performances pass? What remains when the lights go out? Kathleen Byron. Have you heard this name? Maybe not. But once you see those crazy eyes, you can never forget them. The final days of this woman who delivered one of cinema history's most terrifying performances in the 1940s is a lesson for the entire world. The story of Kathleen Elizabeth Fell, born in January 1921 in Manor Park, a suburb of London, might never have begun at all. Her father was just a railway worker, her mother a housewife. To emerge from such a family and reach Hollywood in those days, it was impossible. But wait, this is where the first secret begins. Kathleen's family wasn't an ordinary working-class family. Her father, William Fell, wasn't just a railway worker, but also a man with strong socialist beliefs who believed in social change. Her mother, Mary, was a brave woman who played an active role in the feminist movements of that era, advocating for women's rights. This family had taught their daughter not just to survive life, but to fight with it. This is exactly where everything changed. When little Kathleen was 5 years old, her father took her to the theater for the first time. That night, the play she watched in a small London theater would completely change the course of her life. Stage lights, costumes, the voices of actors. When Kathleen returned home that night, she told her mother, "I want to be like them too." But the road would never be easy. In her school life that began at age 9, Kathleen was very different. While other children played games, she stood aside imitating people. Her teachers' speaking styles, mother's walks, her father's angry moods. She was like a born observer. By age 12, she had founded the drama club at the local grammar school, but her real dream was to attend Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. The problem was, her family wasn't in a position to send money to such a school. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. In 1937, 16-year-old Kathleen took the scholarship exam for Bristol Old Vic. She needed to be selected from among hundreds of candidates. The monologue she prepared was Lady Macbeth scenes from Shakespeare's Macbeth. When the jury members looked at her that day, they were amazed. This girl, who could still be considered a child, was so realistically portraying Lady Macbeth's madness. The jury chairman later said, "When I left the hall that day, my hairs were standing on end. There was something completely different inside this girl. She won the scholarship. But the biggest tests hadn't started yet. The Bristol Old Vic Theatre School years were a complete transformation period for Kathleen. On her first day at school, when she introduced herself, her teacher greeted her like this: "Fell is a strong surname, but you need a more striking name for the stage." From that day on, she became Kathleen Byron. During the 3 years she spent at school, Kathleen worked with a discipline that turned into obsession. She would wake up at 6 in the morning and do stage work until 11 at night. Other students called her Crazy Kathleen because she never took breaks. But what's really shocking, in the school's second year, Kathleen's performances were so striking that agents from London began coming to watch her. But Kathleen was unaware of this. She was only focused on being perfect. 6 months before graduation, the school received a phone call. Carol Reed's team was looking for a young actress for the Young Mr. Pitt film. The teachers suggested only one name: Kathleen Byron. First audition, first movie set, first time standing in front of a camera. Kathleen would only say 2 lines that day on set. She was in a maid role and would act opposite Robert Donat. But those 2 lines would be the turning point of her life. After filming, Robert Donat told the director, "Don't lose this girl. She has great talent inside her." But the real change would happen in 1943. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. On a hot summer day in 1943, there was a party in London, a night where people from the film industry gathered, trying to forget the gloomy atmosphere brought by the war. Kathleen didn't want to go to that party at all. She was tired and wanted to sleep early. But when her friends insisted, she went. And that night, she met the greatest love of her life. Lieutenant John Daniel Bowen was a pilot from the USAAF. Handsome, charismatic, and he would be going to the European front in a few days. When he first saw Kathleen, he approached her and said, "It's impossible that I haven't seen you before, because I couldn't forget such a beautiful woman." A cliché pickup line, but Kathleen's heart wouldn't stop beating. They met every day after that night. There were only 2 weeks until John would go to the front. 14 days. How could 2 young people form such a deep bond in 14 days? What you're seeing now is nothing. On the 13th day, John proposed to Kathleen. It was wartime and death news was coming every day. A generation acting with the thought, who knows what will happen tomorrow? Kathleen said yes. But she had a condition. When John returned from the war, they would go to America. They sat at the marriage table in 24 hours. Kathleen Byron was now Kathleen Bowen. John went to the front. Kathleen searched for her husband's name among death news every day. Letters were coming, but irregularly. Sometimes she wouldn't hear news for 2 weeks. In the summer of 1944, John returned from the war. He was safe, not wounded, but he had changed. War had made him a different man. He wasn't talking, staring blankly for long periods. "We're going to America," John said. "I can't stay here." "You won't believe this, but..." Kathleen wasn't ready to go to America. Her career was just starting in England. But love would triumph over everything, or so she thought. In the autumn of 1944, they boarded the ship. Destination, New York. The journey to America took 12 days. During the ship journey, John seemed to have returned to his old self a bit. Kathleen was hopeful. Maybe America will be a new beginning for both of us, she thought. But when they set foot in America, everything changed. When they arrived in New York, Kathleen was shocked. That big city, that crowd, that speed. It was very different from London. John settled her in a small apartment in Brooklyn. "I'll look for work," John said. "You get used to it here." But John's job search lasted for months. Despite being a war veteran, he couldn't find work anywhere, or he wasn't accepting the jobs he found. He was gradually becoming withdrawn and had started drinking alcohol. Kathleen was struggling for her own career. She was going to auditions on Broadway, trying to work with small theater companies. But her British accent and style weren't easily accepted in America. Wait a minute. Don't miss this detail. In the summer of 1945, Kathleen finally found a small role. She would be a supporting character in a small play performed off-Broadway. But this was very important for her. Her first job in America. The other actors she met during that play told her, "You should go to Hollywood. You're wasting too much time here." Hollywood. Kathleen had never mentioned this to John, because she knew John would oppose it, but she secretly started writing letters to agents in Hollywood. This is exactly where everything changed. At the beginning of 1946, Kathleen received a response. A small agent wanted to represent her. "But you need to come to Los Angeles first," he said. Kathleen explained the situation to John. John went crazy. "While I'm dealing with war trauma here, are you planning to become a Hollywood star?" he shouted. That night they both said many things, words that couldn't be taken back. The next morning, Kathleen packed her suitcase. She left John a note. "I love you, but I'm losing myself. Please understand me." And she went to Los Angeles. The Hollywood years were a complete disappointment for Kathleen. Small roles, meaningless auditions, constant rejection. In 2 years, she could only appear in 3 small films. In the autumn of 1947, she was depressed. She couldn't get any news from John. Her career wasn't where she wanted it. She was having money problems. Just then, the phone rang. There was a British accent on the other end of the phone. Michael Powell introduced himself. Kathleen had heard the name but couldn't remember his face. "I got your number from Carol Reed," Powell said. "I want you for a special film. You need to return to England." Kathleen asked suspiciously, "What kind of film?" "About heaven and hell," Powell said. "You'll be an angel." That phone conversation would change Kathleen's life, but she didn't know yet that she would fall in love with Powell. But what's really shocking? When Kathleen returned to England, Powell met her on set. Both felt it at first sight. There was an electrical attraction between them. During the filming of A Matter of Life and Death, Powell was constantly talking to Kathleen, showing her special attention. Other actors had also noticed this situation. After the film was finished, Powell made Kathleen a second offer. "I'm working on a very special project. It takes place in the Himalayas. You'll be one of the main characters." This was how the Black Narcissus project began. But before filming started, Powell had a private dinner with Kathleen. That night, they both understood that the attraction between them wasn't just professional. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Powell was married. Kathleen was also, technically, married, but both seemed to have forgotten this fact. When Black Narcissus filming began, Kathleen still didn't know what she would do. The Sister Ruth character seemed ordinary on paper, but Powell had completely different plans in his mind. In the first costume fittings, Powell approached Kathleen and said, "This character will reveal the hidden side in your soul." "I need to be crazy," Kathleen had said. Powell smiled and said, "You're already crazy. But it's a beautiful madness." Black Narcissus filming began in the summer of 1947. The set was at Pinewood Studios, but the story took place in the Himalayas. Artificial snow, wind machines, huge sets. Sister Ruth character that Kathleen would portray was the film's most complex personality. Starting as a devout nun, she would be driven to madness by falling in love with David Farrar's character. Powell had written this role especially for Kathleen, because he was also in love with Kathleen and wanted to reflect the pain of this forbidden love onto the character. What you're seeing now is nothing. During filming, Kathleen was truly living that character. When she looked at David Farrar, she felt Sister Ruth's crazy love, but at the same time, she also felt her real love for Powell. The filming of the most famous scene took 3 days. That iconic scene where Sister Ruth is driven to madness, painting her lips with lipstick, her hair scattered in the wind. While Powell was shooting that scene, he had asked Kathleen, "Don't look at the camera, look at me. Direct all your madness at me." Kathleen did so, and one of cinema history's most unforgettable scenes emerged. But what happened on set was more dramatic. When filming ended, Powell and Kathleen couldn't hide their love. They were holding hands, eating together, talking for hours. You won't believe this, but when the film was released, Kathleen had become famous overnight. Those crazy looks, those dramatic scenes, everyone was talking about Kathleen Byron. Critics wrote, Kathleen Byron's performance brought a new breath to British cinema. Those crazy looks are unforgettable. But this fame would cause big problems in her private life. When John Bowen saw photos of his wife with another man in newspapers in America, he went crazy. He immediately came to England. Confrontation was inevitable. When John Bowen came to England in the spring of 1948, Kathleen met him at the airport. They were meeting face to face for the first time after 3 years. "We have things to talk about," John said. That night, they had a long and painful conversation. John asked Kathleen to leave Powell. Kathleen told John about the loneliness she experienced in America. "We've changed," Kathleen said. "War made both of us different people." John didn't want to accept it, but the truth was, both had become different people. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. In the summer of 1949, Powell offered Kathleen a new film, The Small Back Room. In this film, she would play David Farrar's alcoholic girlfriend. During filming, Powell and Kathleen's relationship became completely public. Set workers, journalists, everyone was talking. In 1950, the bomb exploded. When John Bowen filed for divorce, he named Michael Powell as the third party. All of England was talking about this scandal. Newspapers had made headlines. Mad nun turns out to be mad in real life too. Kathleen's career was at its peak, but her private life was shattered. The love she experienced with Powell was now known by all of England. During the divorce process, Kathleen was very alone. The media was tearing her apart. Powell also couldn't give open support because he was married. The court process lasted 8 months. During this time, Kathleen lived in depression. She couldn't work, couldn't sleep. This is exactly where everything changed. During the heaviest days of the court process, an offer came from Hollywood. She was being invited to America for the film Young Bess, 1953. Kathleen thought this was an escape opportunity. "Maybe I need to get away," she said to herself. But the journey to America wasn't what she had dreamed. When she went to America for the second time, Kathleen was a completely different woman. She was no longer a naive young girl, but an experienced woman who had lived through dramatic loves and scandals. But Hollywood producers only wanted to see her in crazy woman roles. Her performance in Black Narcissus had left her typecast. In Young Bess' film, she had a small role alongside Gene Simmons, but Kathleen wanted bigger roles. In meetings with producers, she kept hearing the same thing. "You play crazy characters very well. Why do you want to try something different?" But what's really shocking? During the 6 months she spent in America, Kathleen was very lonely. Away from Powell, away from old friends, she was only fighting for her career. Moreover, during Young Bess filming, she learned news that shook her deeply. She was pregnant. She had no doubt about who the father was. This was Powell's child. But Powell was in England and was married. How would Kathleen explain this situation to him? When she told Powell about her pregnancy in a phone conversation, Powell was surprised but happy. "Come back to England," he said. "Let's raise this child together." But Kathleen was hesitant. Powell had a wife and a big scandal was waiting for them in England. She had to make one of the most difficult decisions. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Kathleen had an abortion. She made this decision alone and only told Powell afterwards. Powell took this news very badly. This was their first big crisis. When Kathleen returned to England from America, a different Powell was waiting for her. Cold, distant, disappointed. "We're finished," Powell said. "This relationship has become too painful." Kathleen's heart was broken, but her pride was hurt. "You're right too," she said. "This can't continue like this." Both thought this separation was temporary, but it wasn't. In the autumn of 1952, Kathleen met Alaric Jacob at a party given at a friend's house. Alaric was a journalist and writer. He worked at the BBC and represented a completely different world from Powell. Alaric was a calm, intellectual, reliable man. He offered Kathleen a completely different life. In their first meetings, Alaric had told her, "You're not just a beautiful actress. You're a very intelligent woman. But I think everyone only sees your beauty." This sentence had deeply affected Kathleen, because for the first time, someone was appreciating her not just for her appearance, but for her mind. "What you're seeing now is nothing." 6 months later, Alaric proposed to Kathleen. It wasn't a very romantic proposal. It was pragmatic. "I love you," Alaric said. "But more importantly, I understand you. I don't know if you'll love me, but if you want someone you'll respect, I'm here." Kathleen said yes, but her love for Powell still wasn't finished. In 1953, she married Alaric Jacob. The wedding was small and quiet. Newspapers didn't show as much interest in this news as they did for Powell. Alaric had a daughter named Aurora from his previous marriage. Kathleen gladly took on the motherhood role. Jasper was born in 1954, Harriet in 1956. Kathleen was now not only an actress, but also a wife and mother. Her career slowed down during this period, but she was happy. She was living a stable life. You won't believe this, but she never left the stage. When television became very popular in the 1960s, Kathleen adapted to this new medium. Danger Man, Z-Cars, The Avengers. Kathleen Byron was always there during television's golden age. In the 1970s, when she portrayed Madame Celeste Lequeux character in the Secret Army series, she met new generation viewers. She had now become a different actress, more mature, more experienced, calmer. But she never forgot Powell. In the 1980s, Kathleen had entered her 60s. She was maintaining a happy marriage with Alaric. Their children had grown up and started to build their own lives. During this period, Kathleen was experiencing the most productive television period of her career. Howard's Way, Casualty, The Bill. She appeared in almost every popular series. In the 1990s, she returned to theater. When she appeared on stage in the Mousetrap play, she was 70 years old. Performing on stage at that age wasn't easy, but Kathleen didn't give up. "Acting is like breathing for me," she would say. "The day I quit is the day I'll die." Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. In 1995, Alaric passed away. He lost his battle with cancer. Kathleen had lost her husband of 45 years. This loss shook her deeply. But her children were by her side. Aurora, Jasper, Harriet. They were all taking care of their parents. During the mourning process, Kathleen held on to work even tighter. "Alaric wouldn't want to see me stopped. she would say. "You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet." In 1998, an offer came from Steven Spielberg. She was wanted for the role of elderly Mrs. Ryan in Saving Private Ryan film. This would be the last big offer from Hollywood. On the film set, young actors didn't hide their respect for Kathleen. Tom Hanks had told her, "I grew up watching Black Narcissus. That film was one of the films that inspired me to become an actor." Matt Damon said, "It's a great honor to have you on our set." Kathleen received this attention with modesty. "I just did my job," she would say. "You young people are much more talented." But during filming, strange things started happening to Kathleen. Sometimes she would forget her lines. Sometimes she would be confused about which scene she was in. At first, everyone thought this was age fatigue. This is exactly where everything changed. In 2000, Kathleen's health condition started to deteriorate. The first symptoms were unable to remember familiar names, confusing recent dates, sometimes forgetting where she was, asking the same questions over and over. When her children took her to the doctor, the first diagnosis was forgetfulness that comes with aging, but her condition was gradually getting worse. In 2002, more detailed tests were done. The result was heavy: early stage of Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Morrison had explained the situation to the family like this: "Unfortunately, we can't stop the progression of this disease. We can only slow it down. Mrs. Byron has a very strong mind. This might buy her some time." When Alzheimer's diagnosis was made, Kathleen was 81 years old. She had received this news with surprising calmness. "Life has given me difficult tests," she had told Aurora. "This is one of them. I overcame losing Powell, losing Alaric. I'll overcome this too." But the reality wasn't that easy. In the first years, the disease progressed slowly. Kathleen was still living at home, able to do daily tasks. But sometimes there were moments when she didn't recognize her. But what's really shocking? In 2003, Kathleen received second bad news: lung cancer diagnosis. Doctors said, "Fighting two serious diseases at the same time will be very difficult, but we can try treatment." Kathleen accepted chemotherapy, but she had a condition: "I want to stay at home. I don't want to stay in the hospital." Aurora, Jasper, and Harriet were taking care of their mother in shifts, but the situation was gradually becoming more difficult. During chemotherapy, Kathleen's memory got even worse. Sometimes she didn't recognize her children. Sometimes she thought she was young. One of the most painful moments was this. One morning, Kathleen asked Aurora, "Where is Powell?" "We're going to rehearse today." Aurora looked at her mother for a long time, then said, "He can't come today, Mother. What you're seeing now is nothing." In the summer of 2004, Kathleen's condition became critical. She could no longer do daily tasks, needed constant care. Her children had to make a difficult decision: professional care. But they didn't want to put Kathleen in an ordinary nursing home. While researching, they learned about Denville Hall. "Special nursing home for actors," said the brochure, "designed for retired people from the art world." This seemed perfect. Kathleen would be with people with artistic souls. In the spring of 2005, Kathleen Byron moved to Denville Hall. When Aurora took her there by car that day, Kathleen had said, "This place looks beautiful, like a stage set." Denville Hall was indeed impressive. It had been the retirement home for actors since 1926. It was founded by Alfred Denville with the slogan, Actors shouldn't starve. You won't believe this, but when Kathleen moved here, it was as if she had returned to the old days. Familiar faces in the corridors, old film posters, stage memories. On the first day, she met Lord Richard Attenborough. Attenborough had recognized her and said, "Kathleen Byron." I can never forget that performance in Black Narcissus. It was one of the most powerful scenes in cinema history. Kathleen answered clearly at that moment. "Thank you, Richard. I miss those days." Attenborough later told the nurses, "When Kathleen's mind is clear, she still has that old intelligence. She's a very special woman." Andrew Sachs was also here. The famous Manual from Faulty Towers, Pat Coombs, June Whitfield. All the legends of the British entertainment world were together. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. On her first evening at Denville Hall, Kathleen sat in the dining room watching the other residents. Everyone had a story. Everyone had once shined on stage. That night, Nurse Janet had told her, "Mrs. Kathleen, you'll be very happy here. Everyone speaks the same language." "Same language?" Kathleen had asked. "The language of art," Janet had said with a smile. This answer had deeply affected Kathleen, because it was really true. These people understood her language. Kathleen's days at Denville Hall had a certain routine. Morning breakfast, medications, physiotherapy, lunch, rest, dinner. But this wasn't an ordinary nursing home routine, because during every meal, cinema and theater memories were shared. Her conversations with Lord Attenborough took Kathleen back to the past. When they talked about Powell films, Kathleen sometimes told them in detail as if they had happened yesterday. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Alzheimer's disease was progressing strangely. Kathleen was forgetting the recent past, but remembering her old films perfectly. Nurse Margaret used to tell, "Mrs. Kathleen forgets what she ate today, but tells the Black Narcissus shoots of 1947 as if they happened yesterday." This situation also surprised the doctors. This type of selective memory loss was rarely seen in Alzheimer's patients. It's as if there's a special part of her brain that protects the most precious memories, Dr. Stevens would say. In 2006, one of Kathleen's strangest behaviors began. Sometimes she thought she was still young, saying she was waiting for Powell. "Michael will come today," she would say. "We're going to rehearse the new scene." In this situation, the nurses didn't contradict her. They joined the game. "Yes, Mrs. Kathleen. He'll come shortly," they would say. This is exactly where everything changed. In the summer of 2007, Kathleen had a surprise visitor, Thelma Schoonmaker. Thelma was Powell's third wife and an Oscar-winning film editor. She said she wanted to see Kathleen. That day, Kathleen's mind was clear. She recognized Thelma and they talked. "Michael always talked about you," Thelma said. "You were his greatest discovery." Kathleen smiled. "He was my greatest love, too." But it stayed in the past. This conversation was very good for Kathleen. It was as if it had healed her old wounds. The most special moments for Kathleen at Denville Hall were when she listened to music. Especially when she heard old film music, she became like a completely different person. Activity coordinator Sarah used to tell, "When we played Black Narcissus music, Kathleen's eyes would sparkle. She would sit upright as if that old Kathleen returned." But what's really shocking? One day while Sarah was playing the soundtrack of Powell films to Kathleen, Kathleen suddenly stood up and started dancing. A person in the advanced stage of Alzheimer's disease was moving so gracefully with the music that those watching were amazed. It was as if body memory was still working, Nurse Janet would say. Music was taking her to the past. After this discovery, her family and nurses started regularly playing old film music to Kathleen. Her favorite piece was the main theme from a Matter of Life and Death film. When she heard this music, sometimes she would cry, sometimes she would smile. What you're seeing now is nothing. By 2008, Kathleen's general condition had deteriorated. She was having difficulty speaking, recognitions were gradually decreasing, but music could still reach her. During every visit, Aurora would put headphones on her mother and play old film music. In those moments, there was peace on Kathleen's face. One day, Aurora had said, "My mother may have left her body, but her soul is still living in those old films." Dr. Stevens explained this situation like this. Music is one of the last abilities lost in Alzheimer's patients. Kathleen's connection with music must be very strong. At the end of 2008, the last photos of Kathleen Byron were taken. Aurora was sitting next to her mother, looking at old film albums. In those photos, there was peace on Kathleen's face. Although the fatigue brought by the disease was evident, there was still that old sparkle in her eyes. You won't believe this, but during the last month, one of Kathleen's strangest behaviors was this. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and say, "I need to go on stage." While the nurses tried to calm her down, Kathleen would insist, "The audience is waiting. I'm late." Dr. Stevens interpreted this situation like this. Her brain wants to be on stage until the last moments. This is a very strong professional identity indicator. When Aurora saw her mother in this state, she was sad but also proud. "My mother was an actress until her last breath." Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. In the first week of January 2009, Kathleen's condition became critical. She was having difficulty eating, sleeping most of the time. But on January 11th, during her 88th birthday celebration, something surprising happened. When her children brought her birthday cake, Kathleen suddenly opened her eyes and spoke clearly. "Thank you, my children. I love you very much." This was her last clear sentence. It was as if she was saying goodbye. January 18th, 2009, Sunday morning. When Nurse Janet entered Kathleen's room during the morning shift, she tried to call out to her, "Good morning, Mrs. Kathleen. It's breakfast time." There was no answer. Kathleen Byron had quietly taken her last breath. She was so peaceful that she seemed to be sleeping. On her room's table stood that famous photo from Black Narcissus. Those crazy eyes, disheveled hair, red lips. This is exactly where everything changed. While Dr. Stevens was filling out the death certificate, he wrote, "Natural death, Alzheimer's disease and cancer complications." But Nurse Janet later said, it was as if she had chosen her own time. She was very peaceful. Aurora learned of her mother's death like this. The phone rang at 8 in the morning. Janet had called. "Aurora, your mother passed away peacefully," she had said. When Aurora started crying, Janet added, "Her last image was very beautiful. She seemed happy as if she was going on stage." The news of Kathleen Byron's death was announced on BBC in the afternoon. The news was, Kathleen Byron, one of the important names of British cinema, died at the age of 88. The actress, known for her unforgettable performance in Black Narcissus film, had been battling Alzheimer's and cancer for a long time. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. The death news echoed worldwide. Leading figures in the art world from Hollywood to England sent messages. Martin Scorsese, Kathleen Byron's performance in Black Narcissus is among the peaks of cinema history. Losing her is a great loss. Steven Spielberg. It was a privilege to work with her in Saving Private Ryan. She was a legendary actress. Columba Powell, Michael Powell's son. My father always spoke of Kathleen with great respect. She was my father's greatest discovery. But what's really shocking? The funeral ceremony was held in London on January 25th. The procession starting from Denville Hall was Kathleen's final journey. Hundreds of people walked behind the hearse. Not just family, but old film friends, fans, Denville Hall residents. Lord Attenborough had attended in a wheelchair. Andrew Sachs, June Whitfield. The living legends of the British entertainment world were there. The most touching moment was this. Black Narcissus music was playing from the hearse. This was Kathleen's last wish. A week after the funeral, a special memorial ceremony was organized at Denville Hall. The hall was decorated with Kathleen's photos and flowers. That night, Denville Hall residents had gathered to remember Kathleen. Everyone had a memory. What you're seeing now is nothing. Lord Attenborough had said in his speech, Kathleen wasn't just a great actress, she was also a very strong woman. Even in her struggle with Alzheimer's disease, she maintained her dignity. Andrew Sachs had added, even in the last years Kathleen lived here, she showed us the power of art. When she listened to music, it was as if she returned to the old days. Aurora gave the most touching speech. My mother always said, acting is like breathing for me. Well, she remained an actress until her last breath. Throughout the night, Kathleen's films were watched. When that famous scene from Black Narcissus came on, the hall was completely silent. Those crazy eyes, those dramatic moments, Kathleen Byron had become immortalized on screen. You won't believe this, but at the end of the memorial night, Nurse Janet made a surprise. She played an old interview recorded in Kathleen's own voice. In the voice recording, Kathleen was saying, acting means life to me. Being under stage lights, entering another character's soul. This is the most beautiful job in the world. I hope the audience remembers me. The hall was filled with tears. Kathleen had made her own farewell in her own voice. Today, Kathleen Byron's photos still hang in the corridors of Denville Hall. Those crazy eyes, those dramatic poses. New residents look at these photos and ask, who is this? The nurses tell them, Kathleen Byron. She portrayed one of cinema history's most powerful female characters. She spent her last years here and was very happy. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. In 2010, a special hall was opened at Denville Hall in memory of Kathleen Byron. This hall, named Kathleen Byron Media Room, shows old British films. On the wall of the hall is this inscription, "Stage lights go out, but art lives forever." In memory of Kathleen Byron. Lord Attenborough had said at the opening, "This hall is in harmony with Kathleen's spirit. She always wanted to inspire others." What you're seeing now is nothing. Kathleen Byron's story teaches us many things. Real artists never die. They just quietly leave the stage, but their works live forever. Even Alzheimer's cannot completely destroy the power of art. Music and memories are hidden in the deepest corners of the brain. Old age and illness are not dishonor. With the right approach and love, everyone can maintain their dignity. Nursing homes are not just waiting places. When the right atmosphere is created, it's possible to make it a living space. You won't believe this, but If you watch Black Narcissus today, you can still see Kathleen's soul in those crazy nun's eyes. Himalayan winds and red lipstick. Film critics write, Kathleen Byron's performance is beyond time. We discover new details every time we watch it. Young actresses are inspired by Kathleen. Emma Stone. That performance in Black Narcissus is one of the scenes I take as a role model. Saoirse Ronan. Kathleen Byron showed how strong female actors can be. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. In 2020, during the pandemic, difficult days were experienced at Denville Hall. Residents couldn't receive visitors for months. During those days, nurses gave morale by telling Kathleen Byron's story. Kathleen also went through difficult days, but never gave up. You will endure too. This story gave so much strength that residents showed resistance against difficulties. This is exactly where everything changed. Kathleen Byron's story is not just the story of an actress. This is the story of respect for old age, the power of art, and human dignity. Have you ever wondered? How do the final days of the artists you love pass? Do we show them the respect they deserve? Kathleen Byron teaches us this. Old age is not an end. It's a different beginning. With the right approach, honor and dignity can be preserved in every period of life. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Thank you for watching this story. This story is real. Kathleen Byron was a real woman, and what she experienced is similar to the realities experienced by millions of elderly people worldwide. Maybe after watching this video, you'll look at the elderly in your own family with different eyes. Maybe you'll want to listen to their stories, because everyone has a story, and these stories deserve to be told. Don't forget to subscribe to the Nursing Home channel, because every artist has a final curtain, and these stories deserve to be told. Which legend story would you like to watch in the next video? Let us know in the comments.